Hello viewers, so welcome to my channel. I'm Hasham. Last video I have completed the problems on computing the basic pay. When the graded pay scale is given, how to compute the basic pay of an SSC during the current previous year, that I have explained. And before that I have uploaded one video on complete theory regarding the income from salary. Now in this video I am going to explain you about allowances. Remember, the provisions for computing taxability of allowances are same for the last assessment year and current assessment year. The current assessment year 23-24, whereas last assessment year 22-23, the provisions, no change in provisions. So you can rely on the video, last year's video also. So do ignore if it is written there assessment year 22-23. Doesn't matter because the provisions are same. In this video, I am going to explain you what do you mean by allowance and what are the different categories and what is the taxability of allowances. Allowance is a fixed monetary benefit. First of all, allowance is a fixed monetary benefit given by the employer to the employee for a specific purpose. For a specific purpose, monetary benefit is given by the employer to the employee periodically along with basic pay. Right? Example is entertainment allowance, house rent allowance, children education allowance, medical allowance, lunch allowance. So many different types of allowances may be given by the employer to the employee. And allowances can be classified into fully taxable allowance and fully tax-free allowance and partly taxable allowance. Three categories we have. First of all, fully taxable allowance. So whenever you find this fully taxable allowance in the problem, immediately you should think that it is fully taxable. That means this allowance should be fully considered in the problem, right? So which are examples of fully taxable allowances are dearness allowance, DA, or high cost of living allowance, additional DA or dearness pay. Whenever you come across dearness allowance, DA or additional DA or dearness pay, it is fully taxable. CCA, City Compensatory Allowance. Some businesses will give CCA to the employees. That is also fully taxable. Then marriage allowance, family allowance, meal allowance, servant allowance, project allowance, medical allowance, lunch allowance, tiffin allowance. These are few examples of those allowances which are fully taxable. Now fully tax-free allowances. Few allowances, very few allowances are there which are completely tax-free or exempted. Example, allowance given to an Indian citizen who is posted abroad and government is giving the allowance. Example, Indian ambassadors who are appointed for the embassy in America or any other country. So every country will have embassy, Indian embassy. For that Indian embassy, ambassadors are appointed by Indian government and sent them to that country. So any allowance given to Indian citizen who is posted abroad, the allowance is fully exempted. Similarly, the allowances given to judges of Supreme Court, High Court, etc. fully exempted. And few more examples are also there. Then partly taxable and partly exempted allowance. Here you have to be careful because provisions are given by Income Tax Act. You can't write your own provisions. So first allowance is entertainment allowance. The entertainment allowance is one of the deduction given under section 16(2). First of all, whatever EA entertainment allowance is given by the employer to the employee, that full entertainment allowance should be taken under allowance, fully taken. Then in deduction under section 16(2), you have to see whether he is eligible for deduction or not. If he is eligible for deduction, then deduction will be given. Otherwise, no deduction will be given. Then this allowance may be given for official or personal purpose. If the EA is given for official purpose, it is not an income. If any amount is unspent, for example, employer has given 10,000 EA to the employee. Out of 10,000, 8,000 he has spent on official duties. 2,000 are remaining. That 2,000 is taxable. If the complete 10,000 is spent by the employee, nothing is taxable if the allowance is given for official purpose. But when nothing is given, only entertainment allowance is given, we have to assume it is an allowance for personal purpose. For personal purpose. When allowance is given for personal purpose, then we have to see whether deduction is allowed or not. EA is allowed as deduction under section 16(2) only for government employees. First condition you remember, if the SSC is a government employee, then only deduction under section 16(2) will be allowed. If non-government employee, no deduction, right? So here the deduction is least of the following three amounts. First, 20% of salary. Second, actual year received. Third, fixed ceiling of 5,000 rupees. And here salary means only basic pay we have to consider. That's all. Take the screenshot of the points which I have written on the board, then I'll explain every point in detail. Now, allowances. Allowances are the monetary benefits given by the employer to employees for a specific purpose. So normally it is seen that many employers will give a monetary benefit along with the basic salary. Along with the basic salary, they will give some allowance for a particular purpose, specific purpose. That is called allowances. In examination, you may get a theory question also. What do you mean by allowances and what are the different categories or types of allowances? Or give some examples of those allowances which are fully taxable and explain about the provisions of entertainment allowance. Like this theory questions will be asked. So if you watch the video, definitely you can be able to attempt the theory question as well. So allowances are fixed monetary benefit given by the employer to employee for a specific purpose, like entertainment allowance, house rent allowance, children education allowance, meal allowance, lunch allowance, medical allowance. These are the allowances. Fixed amount which is given along with the basic salary. Now, the amount of allowance can be either on account of agreement or at the discretion of the employer. So it may be both. It is written in the agreement, employment agreement, it will be written that he will be given so and so allowance, or it may be at the discretion of the employer. Now from taxability point of view, all the allowances can be categorized into special category employees and general category. Special category employees, those employees in the hands of which the allowances are completely exempted. So which are the special category employees? Allowances received by judges of Supreme Court and High Court. In India, the judges receiving the allowance, either the judges of Supreme Court or High Court, fully exempted. Secondly, allowances received by the employees of UNO, United Nations Organization, the employees receiving allowances fully exempted. Allowances received by the chairman or member of UPSC, Union Public Service Commission. So chairman or member receiving allowances fully exempted. So these three categories are special category employees. Now general category. In general category employees, when the employee receives allowances, we can classify the allowances into three categories. Fully taxable allowances, fully tax-free or exempted allowances, and partly taxable and partly exempted. That means the unexempted amount of allowance will be taxable. The Income Tax Act has given the provisions which allowances are partly taxable and partly exempted. Now, first of all, fully taxable allowances. Now concentrate here. When we do the problem, if these allowances appear, then you should immediately say that this allowance is fully taxable, right? So which are the examples of fully taxable allowance? Dearness allowance or high cost of living allowance. See here, there is inflation in every country. Due to inflation, those people will be hardly hit who are having fixed salaries. Because due to inflation, the prices of goods and services are increasing, but the salary is remaining constant. They will be hardly hit. So to combat this situation, employer will give the allowance called a dearness allowance or high cost of living allowance. So when in the problem DA comes, immediately you should think fully taxable. Then additional DA. Apart from normal DA, some additional DA may be given fully taxable. City compensatory allowance. Every city, the cost of living will be different. In some metropolitan cities, the cost of living will be high, the rental charges will be high, the food charges will be high. So if an employee is deputed in a particular city where cost of living is high, they will be compensated by giving CCA, city compensatory allowance, fully taxable. Then marriage allowance, family allowance, meal allowance, servant allowance, project allowance, medical allowance, lunch allowance, OT, overtime allowance, warden allowance, tiffin allowance, daily allowance. These are the examples of those allowances which are fully taxable. In examination, you may get a theory question also, short theory question. Give some 5 examples of allowances which are fully taxable. Remember this one. Apart from that, in problems we'll come across. Now, note, foreign allowance given to government employees fully exempted. The government will employ a person in another country and foreign allowance will be given. For example, Indian government has appointed Mr. X as ambassador to USA. So Mr. X is giving the service in USA, but he is given salary and allowances by Indian government. So salary given to Mr. X is taxable, but allowances given to Mr. X is not taxable, exempted. Note, if DA enters for retirement benefit, it is called DP. So very frequently in the problems you will come across DP, dearness pay. That means that the DA which enters for retirement benefit. Now fully tax-free or exempted allowance. In examination again you may get a theory question. Give some 5 examples of allowances which are fully exempted. So here, foreign allowance given to government employees. Just now I told you, the foreign allowance given by government to the employees who are serving abroad, fully exempted. Any allowance paid to High Court or Supreme Court judges, fully exempted. Any allowance given to the employees of UNO, fully exempted. Any allowance given to the chairman or member of UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, fully exempted. Now next thing is partly taxable and partly exempted. This is a difficult one, important, you have to remember. Some amount is taxable and some amount is exempted. That is called partly taxable allowances. So some allowances are partly taxable and partly exempted. Those allowances are entertainment allowance, house rent allowance, uniform allowance, helper allowance, academic allowance, conveyance allowance, children education allowance, children hostel allowance, truck driver or air hostess allowance, transport allowance. Few examples I have given where the allowance is partly taxable and partly exempted. So how much taxable, how much exempted? Income Tax Act has given the provisions. We have to remember the provisions. One of the reasons why students will score less marks in income tax is they cannot be able to remember the provisions. So don't do that one. Take some interest in learning, in remembering the provisions. I am explaining each and every provision in detail. Now first of all, entertainment allowance. We have the problems also. In the coming video, we will solve the problem on EA, entertainment allowance. So EA is one of the item of deduction given under section 16(2) of the Income Tax Act. While computing income from salary, we take 4 components. First salary, then allowances, then perquisites, then profit in lieu of salary. These 4 items when we add up, we will get gross salary income. From gross salary income, deductions are allowed under section 16. So one of the deduction under section 16 is deduction under section 16(2). That is EA deduction. So the procedure is, first of all, whatever EA received, that will be taken under allowances. Secondly, we have to see whether deduction is eligible or not, available or not. We have to check. We have to apply the provisions. If deductions are allowed, then take the deduction under section 16(2). That is the provision for EA. One thing you have to remember, EA may be given either for official purpose or for personal purpose. If in the problem it is given EA given for official purpose, then think that it is not an income. Then you have to treat it. You have to treat that allowance received for official purpose is not an income. It is not taxable. In working note you should write down, allowances given by the employer for official purpose is not taxable, not an income. Allowance given for personal purpose, it is partly taxable, partly exempted, or fully taxable. So if nothing is mentioned in the problem, then you have to assume that the allowance is given for personal purpose, not for official purpose. Now steps. The steps are, first of all, whatever EA received, that should be taken under allowances. EA received should be taken under allowances. Secondly, in working note, we have to calculate the amount deduction, that is exempted amount. Exempted amount we have to calculate in working note. Thirdly, if the deduction is available, take the deduction under section 16(2). These are the steps. Now deduction. EA is allowed as deduction only for government employees. Remember. So first of all, in the problem you have to see whether the SSC is a government employee or a non-government employee. If the SSC is a government employee, whether state government or central government employee EA received, deduction will be allowed. If the SSC is a non-government employee, EA deduction will not be allowed. That point you write it down immediately. In the problems we'll come across. So no deduction is available for non-government employees, right? Now the deduction is list of the following three amounts. Income Tax Act has given the provisions. How much deduction under section 16(2) is allowed? The list of the following three amounts. First one, 20% of salary. In working note we have to calculate 20% of salary. Second, actual year received. Third, fixed ceiling amount. Fixed ceiling amount is 5,000, not more than 5,000. The least of these three amount will be allowed as deduction under section 16(2). Now first note, actual amount spent should not be considered. Example, in the problem it will be given EA given by the employer to employee 10,000 rupees. Actual amount of EA spent by the employee is 5,000 rupees. Ignore. The actual amount spent by the employee should not be considered. Ignore. Only actual amount received should be taken. Now rupees 5,000 is the ceiling amount, not per annum. While calculations, you must remember that 5,000 rupees is the ceiling, maximum amount, not related to period. Thirdly, salary means basic pay only. Because first condition, 20% of salary. What do you mean by salary? For salary, we should take only basic, nothing else. These are the points you have to remember regarding entertainment allowance. So in this video, I have explained you about what do you mean by allowances, what are the different types of allowances and the provisions regarding EA. Inshallah, the next allowance, that is house rent allowance and children education allowance, children hostel allowance, all these things I will explain in the next video. So if you are satisfied, give a like to the video. Share my channel among your friends, among your groups, so that more students can watch the video and enhance the knowledge. Give your comments, subscribe my channel if you have not yet subscribed. And by the super thanks which is given below my video, inshallah we'll continue the next topic in the next.